Good morning. Today we're going to be learning how to add and subtract positive and negative decimals. Okay? We're going to still use the same rules that we've been using, but now we're going to work with decimals instead. So, first thing we have to make sure we do is write our problem vertically, lining up our decimals. Okay? And we're going to go through some examples to show you what I mean by that. Second thing, we do follow our integer rules. For adding and subtracting, we've got to make sure we change the subtraction problems to adding the opposite of the second number. And then we're just following addition rules for the rest. Same signs, add and keep. Different signs, subtract and keep the sign of the largest number. And that does mean the largest absolute value. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Our first example is 5 1/2 plus -1 and 2/10. Okay, so the first thing is we've got to determine which number is bigger. Okay, 5 1/2 is bigger. So when I'm setting this up vertically, I'm going to write the 5 1/2 on top or first. Okay, I've got to make sure I'm lining my decimals up, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it there. Okay, you guys see how my decimals are lined up, and I've got 1 and 2/10. Okay. And now I just followed my rule. My rule tells me I have to subtract these two numbers since I have different signs. So 5 subtract 2 is 3. 5 minus 1 is 4. And then I just bring my decimal straight down. Since 5 1/2 is positive, my answer is positive because that is our bigger number. So my answer for this is 4 and 3/10. Okay. The second question, -7 1/2 plus 8 and 43/100. Okay, first of all, I'm going to determine which number is bigger. My 8 and 43/100 is bigger, so that's the number I put first. 8 and 43/100. I've got to remember to line my decimals up. Okay, and I'm subtracting because I've got opposite signs again. So I'm subtracting 7 1/2. Okay, now you guys, you've probably learned this when you learn to subtract and add with decimals, but you can put a 0 for a placeholder. Okay, it doesn't change the value if it's on the end after the decimal. It does change the value, though, if you're putting it before the decimal. Okay, so now I can take and subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. 4 minus 5, I can't do that, so I do have to borrow from the 8. It's going to make this 14. 14 minus 5 is 9. And then 7 minus 7 is 0. And then again, bringing my decimals straight down. Since 8 and 43/100 is our biggest number and it's positive, our answer is positive. So 0 and 93/100 is our answer. All right, let's look at some subtraction. Okay, our first one, -7 and 2/10 minus -4 and 25/100. So the first thing we've got to do with subtraction is go ahead and change our problem. So I'm going to change it to adding the opposite. Okay, the opposite of a negative is a positive. So it does become a positive. Then I'm going to determine which number is bigger. Okay, bigger here is the 7 and 2/10 because it's higher absolute value than 4 1/4. So I'm going to write that number first, 7 and 2/10. Again, I do have opposite signs. That means I'm subtracting. So I'm going to take and subtract my 4 and 25/100. I've got to make sure I'm lining up my decimals. So I'm going to put my 4 under the 7 because those are my whole numbers. And then I'm going to put my 25. Now, for this problem, you have to put the 0 for a placeholder because it is your first number here. Okay? So I'm putting my 0 for my placeholder. Then I'm going to solve my problem. I can't take 5 away from 0, so I have to borrow from the 2 and make it a 1. And this 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. Now I can't take 1 minus 2, so again I have to borrow. Makes that 11. 11 minus 2 is 9. 6 minus 4 is 2. And I bring my decimal straight down. Now, because my bigger number is a negative, this answer is also going to be negative. So we've got -2 and 95/100. 0 and 75 hundredths minus 12 and 8 tenths. So first thing we're going to do again is change our problem. We have to change it to adding the opposite. The opposite of a positive is a negative. Now I determine which of these numbers is bigger. Okay, this number is bigger, so that's the number I'm writing first. 12 and 8 tenths. Okay, still lining my decimals up. Okay, I've got a 0 in my whole number, so I'm going to put a 0 here. And then I'm writing my 75 hundredths. Again, I'm still subtracting because I do have two different signs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in a 0 for my placeholder. Have to borrow. This becomes a 7. This becomes 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 7 minus 7 is 0. Break my decimal down. 12 minus 0 is 12. Okay, again, the 12 and 8 tenths is bigger. It is negative. So my answer is negative. So negative 12 and 500. Don't forget this 0 here when you're writing your answer. It is part of your problem. It does make a difference in 5 tenths and 500, which is a pretty big difference. Okay, so those are our examples. If you have questions, let me know. See you later. Have a great day.